Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Bovin, and it is episode 103. Yeah, 103. And for some reason, I do not know why, my heart is racing. It's like I'm nervous. It's like my first time doing this ever again. So I don't know why. I really don't know why. But anyways, this is the show for all hunters and outdoorsmen alike, where we gather around the electronic campfire, share stories, learn hunting strategies, techniques, tips, just become better outdoorsmen, better hunters overall. And it's just nice to meet new people virtually and get to talk with them and learn their background. For those of you that are unfamiliar, one day, I swear, I'm going to go back to grammar school or something, because sometimes words are hard for me. It looks like it's still continuing at age 30. Anyways, we do a live show every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check us out there. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, we'll never tell anybody no. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media platforms, or you can send an email to brettbovin@whitetailadvantage.com. We also have, so during the show, if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and then we'll keep an eye out for it, and we'll pop them up during the show. We also have a saying on the show: put your corn in a slot machine. Put your corn in a slot machine. What we simply mean by that is to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport, it's a dying lifestyle, and all we ask is everyone out there to help us get one new friend. Help share the show. That's all we ask. If you use the code GP10, you get 10% discount off Ghillie Putt products. Make sure to go check out MAGNUS BROADHEADS and Grizz Media, because they're going to be relaunching us into the future and helping us redo a whole bunch of rebranding, photos, website, possibly a new logo. Who knows? But we'll see. I love Jesse. He's a great guy, and excited to work with him even more. All right. We all know I don't like intros. That's done. Let's say this. The Deucer's not here right now, but I think he's on his way to being with us right now. So with that being said, I'm going to be doing this all by myself for the first beginning part of it, hopefully not the entire show. So bear with me. With that being said, we're in Oklahoma this week. We got Trey and Conner on for tonight, and I'm not going to say anything about them. Let them talk about that, because no one likes listening to me talk as much as I like to. So anyways, let's get them on. What is up, fellas?
How are you?
How's it going?
You know what? It's a day, and like I said, I don't know what it is. It's like I'm nervous. It's weird, and I swear, one day I'm going to go back to grammar school, because I slow down and learn vocabulary. And I don't know what it was, because when I was in school, I tried taking Spanish. I got like a D+, C-, or whatever. It's hard to learn another language when you don't even know your own language. Nouns, verbs, and all this other crap. It's hard, man.
No, I still get nervous every time we do a podcast, whether it was ours or somebody else's. It's funny because I can talk deer hunting all day long with anybody in person. It doesn't make me nervous, but for some odd reason, getting in front of a microphone just kind of makes your belly feel weird.
Right. Well, guys, can you give a little background about who you are? And we'll start off with Trey.
Yeah. So Trey Dandridge. I grew up in Northeast Oklahoma. So I guess my hunting started pretty young, probably somewhere between like 5 and 8. My uncle actually is who took me mostly. He was a pretty hard hunter, hunted a lot of public land, some private land, and thankfully just drug me along with him. And I guess that's where I got my love for it. I killed my first deer with him when I was 9. After that, I was just straight hooked. And I, slowed down just a tad bit, I would say, around high school, playing sports, stuff like that. Gun hunted a little, bow hunted a little, but killed most of my deer with a gun. And then I got my first legit nice bow when I was about 15. And then when I got my first truck, then it was just off to the races after that. I started doing it on my own and with my uncle, and haven't really slowed down since. And then I met Connor in college, and we actually met because we were both on the bass fishing team. And he ended up being my partner. He didn't have a boat. I did. And then we did that for a little while, fished off and on, and then realized we both really liked to hunt. And then I got the idea to start filming. And then that's kind of where I went from there. We both got filming gear, and we've been doing it for about 5 years now, as far as the filming, hunting together for 7 or 8. And yeah, now we're here.
Well, Connor?
I'm not going to waste anybody's time because I pretty much got the same exact story. Started going with my dad when I was younger, and then ended up going with my younger brother as well, and got into hunting, say, as a young age, about, 10, 11s when we really, I think 10s when I started really hunting on my own, where I was the one actually hunting and my dad was taking me. Got into bow hunting late middle school, early high school. Sports kind of got busy, but I'd still hunt when I could all through high school. And then in college, like you mentioned, we met at NSU, and we were mainly fishing for, first couple of years together. And then, but it was funny, every time we'd go fishing or be in a tournament, all we do is talk hunting the entire time. And we were like, dude, why haven't we been hunting together? Like, we fish all the time. Why don't we go hunting? It's all we do. We talk about it 24/7. So we started hunting together, hunting public land. And then 2019 started filming hunts a little bit, and it's just kind of grown from there. And it's been interesting to see the development that we've had, and like how much tactically we try to do things now, and the differences from when we first started hunting together to now. And it's been pretty cool based on things like you mentioned at the beginning, podcasts, videos, just ways to learn more and hear from other people. And so it's really cool to have the opportunity to be on here and talk hunting a little bit.
So let me backtrack real quick. You guys met on the fishing team at your college?
Yeah. So we actually grew up probably about an hour and 30 minutes apart. I didn't know he existed, period. We just happened to go to the same college, and we actually had like our first meeting for the fishing team, and went in there and sat down. He actually showed up, I think, late a little bit. He just come walking in late. And then the president of the team, we were trying to figure out like upcoming tournaments, stuff like that. And then he was like, who has a boat? Who doesn't? Like the guys that don't pair up. And then I was like, I got a boat, and then there was a couple more guys that paired up real fast. And Connor was sitting right across from me, and he was like, I'll fish with you. And I was like, okay, I guess sounds good, and yeah. And then after that, like I said, I think it wasn't but a couple days later, I was fishing a jackpot. I was fishing by myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot that kid a message. We hadn't even talked up to this point. I was like, I'm just going to shoot him a message and see if he wants to fish. And I hollered at him, and he said, yeah. And then that really kicked it off right there. I mean, honestly, if you'd have asked me sitting in the library that day at the college, or told me this guy's going to be your best friend, probably for life, like I'd have probably laughed a little bit because, never met him before in my life, but it didn't take long. I figured it out.
I swear, till recently, I didn't realize that a lot of schools have fishing teams, and it's more kind of geared towards like down south type of schools. Obviously, you're not going to really. I think Western has one. I'm not 100% sure, but I was like, man, I wish I knew that was a thing. I would have got more trying to go to school down south.
Yeah. It my high school actually had one, I think my sophomore or junior year, because we didn't have one, and I was trying to get one started. And a lady that worked at the school, her son was coming up. I think he was in middle school, and I think he was a freshman when I was a junior or a senior, but he loved to fish like I did, and she was trying to push for it too. She's really the one that helped us get it going. And so it was a little late to the game when I was in high school, but I mean, I knew for years that I wanted to go to college to fish, because, at one point in time, I thought I wanted to fish for a living, at least try my shot, and college is a good way to do that if you're a young kid with no money, like I said, my uncle that I was talking about earlier, we hunted a lot, but we fished a lot. I fished a lot of tournaments with him and jackpots with him as a kid. I've got plaques on my wall still, a few, from us winning. Gosh, it might have been $30 at a Friday night jackpot, but he split it with me. And those are some of the best memories I have from when I was younger. But like I said, the older I got, for whatever reason, the more I lean towards the hunting stuff. I still love to fish. I still like to go, but it's more just recreational, Now, like I said, I got a son. When he gets older, if he takes it on like I did, then maybe I'll dip back into it a little bit. But yeah, especially once me and Connor become friends, it was just, all hunting after that mostly.
PSC Mobile Hunter here made a comment saying bass teams in high schools in Michigan is huge. A lot of the schools in my area travel all over for tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck? Like I was geared towards more of football. Like I really wanted to go to college, and obviously I wanted to make it to the NFL. And I don't get me wrong, I loved hunting. That was my driven passion.
Mm-hmm.
I never had like anyone in my family that was really into the passion of fishing compared to hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think that's probably why I didn't know much about fishing in schools that had that type of stuff.
Right.
But if I had like another friend that was more into fishing, they're like, yeah, they got teams that do that at college, and you can probably go there for some type of scholarship. And I was like, fuck football, man.
Yeah. I know too, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 29, I'm about to be 30, but it was really just becoming a thing about the time we were getting into college. I mean, it was there before us, but not long. I mean, like I said, about the time I got it into our high school, it was like it started popping up in other high schools here and there. Like it was just becoming a pretty big thing. So that may, like I said, I don't know if you're a little older than us or same age, but it may have just not have been a big of a platform then, as it is now.
I turned 31 here at the end of the month. So yeah, just really, I don't think it was either like a big thing either, but
yeah.
I don't know. All right. Let's fishing talk. We're talking about deer hunting now. Because I know more about that than fishing. Unless I had Dan on the show. That dude, I'll say this real quick. He's a part of the team here. Mm-hmm. And that dude is a fishing guru. Like if I know anybody that knows fishing, that's the guy I go to for everything. And I told him, and I was like, Dan, you got to get into hunting, man. I'll teach you everything I know. He goes, well, it sounds expensive. I'm like, it doesn't sound expensive. It is fucking expensive, man. Like 1 month's salary of all the stuff you put into fishing, you're going to spend 10 times that on just one little thing in hunting. So you're going to try it. You're going to love it. And he's loved it ever since. And I tell him it's the healthiest version of crack, man. And he got addicted to it.
It depends on what kind of fishing you want to do too. Cause when I first got married, I bought a brand new bass boat, and now I'm all hunting, and I still have this dang boat because I still love to fish. But I can promise you my Hoyt bow does not cost me $500 a month like that boat does sitting in my driveway, but fishing can get real expensive if you want to do it at a higher level. But hunting is not cheap either, and nothing's getting cheap. It's all
he's a big bass fisherman, and he took me out fishing one day and couldn't catch anything, and he really wasn't catching a whole lot either. And so I was like, hey, is there any pike in here? Because I've always wanted to catch a pike. I've only just catch a bluegill, really. He goes, yeah, there's pike in here. So we set me up for a pike, and I caught a good I don't know how big it fucking was, but it was a big one. And I was like, oh shit. And then he kept telling me, he's like, all right, make sure you keep reeling in. And I kept reeling in. The next thing I know, he told me, as soon as the what's that thing that goes in the water? I'm drawing a blank right now. The spin caster, that thing that goes in the water and you drag it along.
Is this a northern thing?
A bobber or whatever. Anyways,
your bobber floats.
It came close, yeah, and it came all the way up to the top. And he goes, "No, Brett, stop! You can't do that. You're gonna snap and break the fishing rod." I had no idea about that when it comes to fishing pike. Like, oh shit! Sorry, man.
I've never fished for pike, so that's out of my realm.
All right, let's talk about your guys' background when it comes to hunting now. So, do you guys see yourself hunting more on public land or private land, or do you dabble in both?
Mostly public. I mean, I've been fortunate to gather 2 pieces of private the last couple of years, just smaller pieces. But I mean, we've spent, 90% of our time fishing. I mean, fishing talk, hunting public land, fishing public land. No, hunting public land. And we started running cameras and all kinds of stuff on public. back in like 2017 ish, I grew up hunting private land, and public land. It was probably 50-50. And there was a guy that, owns hundreds and I don't know, possibly thousands of acres around our town. Real, a nice guy, I guess. I don't know him personally, but my uncle and my grandpa did. And he just kind of let anyone who wanted to hunt, which is where I grew up hunting. And then about the time I hit high school, they were kind of, pushing people from hunting that. So then it was all public after that. My uncle owns a little bit of land. I've hunted his place a little, but the majority of my hunting that I've done has been public. And still is. Like I said, I'm excited for these private pieces this year. It's a little different than what I'm used to. I'm not used to being able to, throw corn out for these things. But I don't know, something about the public, it just, that like not knowing thing. I mean, we run cameras and we know, some of the bucks in the area, but you just never know what's coming around the corner on public. I think that's part of what draws me to it.
Yeah, I'd say growing up, I was 95% private, permission pieces and some lease pieces that we had. Nothing major, nothing, huge. And then late high school, I started hunting public a little bit with my dad. And then when we met in college and when I started going to college is when I really started getting more into public. And it was probably, it started moving into 50-50. And then now I'd say this upcoming season, I'm going to be almost 100% public. We've only got one small permission piece that we have. And it's one of those small places that if you put too much pressure, you'll just ruin it. So, I mean, we're pretty much going to mainly be public. And it, like you mentioned, it's fun. It's the idea of, especially depending on the areas you go, usually if you have a permission piece or if you have a lease or whatever, you're restricted to usually a smaller piece. Whereas the public places we go, I mean, we have often thousands of acres that are at our disposal to, change, get mobile, and kind of figure these deer out and try to, follow the patterns, follow the shift. And so that's been what's kind of exciting is, tactically it's kind of pushed us and challenged us a little bit to try to get out of our comfort zone a little bit. And so that's kind of the exciting part with it. And that's what we generally like every time we go out there.
Are these private pieces of land, are they big in acre size or are they small?
The two that I'm hunting, one is a little over 100 acres, like 110, which is, I feel like a pretty good size. I know that's in comparison to some people, that's not a big property, but it feels big to me. And the other one is just 40 acres. And I honestly, it was challenging for me. I hunted the 40 acres last year. And the problem is there's so many deer on this little property and the property surrounding it. Like I get pictures all day on my cell cam. I mean, I'll have 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 does there at a time. And through deer season, I had probably 10 or 12 different bucks running through every day. And the problem was every time I go hunt it, I was pushing deer off of it. It's so hard to access and hunt it. So that's been challenging on that. Honestly, I feel like I'm more efficient on public land for sure. But I've got a better idea how the deer move there now. This other piece, it's a little over 100 acres. I don't know anything about it yet. I mean, I've got quite a bit of deer on camera there, but it sets up kind of odd too. Access, I feel like, is going to be funny, but I do have, like I said, one pretty good bachelor group that showed up, not too long ago. I'm hoping they show back around. But yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, not huge, but decent amount of land.
Connor?
Yeah, the only piece we're on this year is less than 20, so it's small.
And I want to ask this real quick because a buddy of mine, I kind of asked him, was like, if you had any questions for a guest, what would you want to ask him? And he hunts on pieces of the property where it's like 20 acres or less. So how are you overcoming those small parcels, and how are you trying to find these pockets where these deer are at, and how are you trying to gain advantage on them to be successful on these small pieces? I mean, granted, I'm not saying you can't be successful on 20 acres. I mean, 20 acres is still a lot of property, but I'm going to just leave it to you. How are you trying to find success on those 20 acres a lot? So
for the one we're on right now, I mean, with any property, it depends on how it sets up generally. So how is the access one? And for this one, we've got a road on the south side, so the access, we can come anywhere from the south. So that's one thing we have to look at, because you don't want to be bumping deer out. You bump them out, I mean, they're off the property, and depending on how it sets up and where they're at, it could be where you're changing patterns of some deer. I've learned that I feel like does, generally the does that we're going to have will be there. You bump them a few times, they're still going to be there. The bucks that we have, it depends where your 20 acres is at and what it ends up looking like. If you've got a bunch of bedding, then you may have them living on there. This property doesn't have a ton of bedding. It's a bunch of oaks, and so early October, mid-October is usually pretty good. It gets littered with scrapes. I think last year on the 20 acres, man, I don't even remember the number. It was unreal, the amount of scrapes that we went and counted on this property just throughout the season that we were finding. And so for us, how it's set up is, one, we just had to make sure our access was good. You didn't want to be going in there if we felt like it wasn't the right conditions, or it didn't set up, or if we're targeting mature bucks. If we didn't have mature bucks rolling through the property, then we didn't want to put that pressure on there. And so from there, it's just kind of figuring those pieces out. Last year was our first full year on it. And we learned quite a bit about it, about where they generally are moving through, especially with bucks, whether it's, when they start cruising and hitting those scrapes and hitting the oaks in that mid to late October, and then November when they're rolling through and chasing does. We generally figured out the 2 to 3 patterns of movement, and then we're just kind of pinpointing the conditions on when to be there, predicting those patterns, and getting your best chances. Last year we had several chances with some, decent bucks, but it's just the few that we had targeted and said we wanted to, fill our tag with and try to focus on. I think my dad had a couple chances where just out of range, or, ended up coming through, bumping a doe and wouldn't stop, things like that. But in terms of hunting small properties like 20 and less, this is the first one I think I've been on. And then other than that, I'd say I've been more in the like 40 to 80 acre range would be what I'd call a small property that I've been on before. And then some of the other ones were, a couple hundred acres, kind of more of what Trey is on this year. But those 20 or less, it's one of those that we learned pretty quickly that if you go put too much pressure, you may still have those does, and in the rut, the bucks will still move through because those does are there. But it's a lot easier to get a buck where he's like, I'm not. 18 acres isn't that big. They can easily change their pattern and still be in the same area, and they're already off your property, especially if the people around you aren't hunting and they realize like, hey, it doesn't smell funky up there. I haven't been busted up there. That other spot's I don't feel as pressured. I don't feel safe on this property, so I'm going to change my pattern through the other one, and they can still generally do the same patterns of movement that they want to do.
Yeah. Same with like the 40 acres that I was talking about. Like, I think that was my mistake last year, was over hunting it. I haven't hunted a lot of private in the last several years, and never had one to my own like that. And I went in, I put a feeder in and put a blind up, because my plan was for my daughter and my wife to hunt a little bit with me. Had a bunch of does showing up, and then into September I had a bachelor group of bucks show up. And then about mid-October, I had one pretty good 8-point show up, a buck I wanted to kill. And he was kind of sparse at first, and then towards the end of October really started showing up a lot. And I think my problem was going in there and hunting and hoping he was going to be there when the pictures I were getting were at night. And I hunted it a few times. I bumped the does out of there a few times. Like I said, they're there all the time. And I was still seeing a lot of deer. There was one hunt I seen like 9 bucks in one day just cruising through his property. There's not a lot of bedding. It's just some cedars and oaks and a little, couple of greenbrier thickets that they mill around in. But I know the bucks don't live there, like I said, they roll through it. And, but I think, like I said, I waited. Well, we hunted Kansas a lot. The 1st of November, we were in Kansas a lot. And I was forced to give that place a break. It wasn't my choice. It's just that I wanted to be in Kansas. And I started getting pictures of that buck after a week or two of not being there. And I went back in the first sit. I played the wind good, got in there, and he come rolling in at like 7:30 that morning. He was the second buck to show up. And actually, like I said, still trying to figure this property out. I had my wind blowing northeast, and there's like kind of one big main draw that runs up into this 40 acres. And there's a little stream that runs through it. And the only thing I can figure, there was literally like 2 mile-an-hour winds that morning. And the only thing I can figure is either that stream or just the draw itself. The thermals were pulling down into that or something, because I had checked my wind multiple times and it was blowing over my left shoulder, and he was coming up over the ridge to my right, fixing to cross the draw and the little stream to my right. And when his nose got over that stream, he about done a backflip and run up on the side of the hill, just looking like he knew, like for sure. I was about to shoot him. Like I just needed like 10 more steps. And that's the last time I ever seen him, gone. And the neighbor ended up killing him during rifle season a couple weeks later. But so kind of like Connor was saying, I think learning the way the bucks move in that property, I got to watch that a lot last year. I watched the way he come in that day. I watched the way all the young, dumb bucks, move through there. And I think my plan this year is just to stay out of it. Which I've heard a lot of guys say on like small pieces, like you can overhunt it real fast and run your deer off. So my plan this year, actually on both places that I have, is just, I'm going to do my doe hunting and, a lot of my early season hunting on public, unless I have something big show up in the daylight consistently. But that way, and just wait till it's right. Cause once I got out of there last year and left it alone, and then he started coming in, I waited for the wind to be right, waited on the right day, went in there, and I was 10 steps from killing him. Like I said, I shouldn't have been down in that draw, I guess. But yeah, so I think that's my plan for a smaller property, is just stay out of it, unless, like I said, my wife or my daughter want to go in and kill a doe or a small buck. I don't care. If they want to do that, I'll take them, But other than that, I'm going to leave it alone till he's there and it's right. That's my plan, now that I have an idea of how they're moving in there.
Let's say someone just got permission to hunt on, let's say 15 acres, and they have 2 weeks before hunting season starts. How would you tell them to attack that piece of property? And they have no knowledge. Even the person that owns it is like, yeah, you can go out there hunting, but I don't know jack shit anything about deer moving out there. So what would you tell them? They have 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks before hunting season starts.
I would say it depends on your state. Obviously, can you bait, whatnot? Like
Let's
can
go,
bait here.
Let's go in Oklahoma then. Are you allowed to bait in Oklahoma?
Yes.
You can, right?
Yes.
Let's based off Oklahoma then.
Okay, so like last year I started 2 weeks, on that 40 acres, 2 weeks before season. Now again, there may be a better way, but I mean, I just went in there and dumped a bag of corn on the ground and stuck a camera. I went in there and scouted the whole place a couple different days first, and looked at the sign, looked at the old sign, found the old rubs, the old scrapes. Didn't find a lot of bedding stuff, so I didn't figure they were bedding there much. I didn't even kick any deer off of it that day, but I put a pile of corn on the ground, put a camera up, put a cell cam up, and it wasn't long they showed up. I mean, I would say if I was given 15 acres, 20 acres, it's probably what I'd do. Go in there, dump some corn out, get it, like scout it first, but just get an idea of what's there. And, I don't know any other better way to find out what's there. If you can bait, that's your way to find out.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to know quickly, if I had to attack the piece and I had 2 weeks, probably what I'd look at first, depending on if it's something that's like close to home, I can access it whenever I want. That'd be probably a little different than if I have to say it's a 2-hour drive and I just got permission to this piece is further away. But if it's close to home, I'm probably looking at the forecast. And if there's any rain coming, that's going to be big for me because I'll probably go scout it right before rain so I can cover every inch of that property, let that rain come through and wash any scent that I've had. And the first time I step on it, I'm probably looking for 3 things. 1, is there any bedding? Do I see any beds? Any thick areas that I think they'd bed in? 2, what's the food like? So if it's depending on Oklahoma, I mean, you could be in a property that it's 15 acres that borders against a bean field or a corn field, and that could make a difference. But I'm going to go with a lot of properties, depending on like where we hunt northeastern Oklahoma compared to like central and western. There's a good chance you might have some oaks. So I'm going to go check what oaks do I got? Am I looking at white oaks? Is it just like a blackjack pin oak kind of property? If I can find those white oaks, that's it right there. It's the money for me. Are they producing acorns, or is it something where I don't look like I have a good acorn crop? Check that. And so I've got bedding, I've got food, and see what I'm finding in those areas, and then look for any old sign. Am I seeing any old licking branches, any old rubs, any good trails, to give me a pretty good idea and I like what I think where's the food, where's the bedding, where's the movement. And then, like he said, I'm sticking either a couple cameras up and then deciding if I want to throw corn down to figure it out quickly, or am I just going to let this property be what it's been, throw a few cameras and see what's going on. On small properties, I've learned cell cams can be huge. I know some people are for and against those, but it helps you stay out of the property. So like what he was mentioning with the when we were hunting in Kansas, he'd been hunting that 40 acres. That buck was nocturnal. Oh, I'm not going to say that. I don't think deer are truly nocturnal, but on his property, he's at night. Now he's probably daylighting at someone else's property because this is a small piece, but on his property, it's at night. However, the minute he stops hunting it, whether it was a shift in the deer, it was just the pressure, which could have been the reason, but that buck starts showing up. And then the key factor for me is he mentioned the first sit he had back on that property is when he had a chance at that buck. And so if I can throw some cell cams on that 15 acres to where I've got an idea of what I've seen on the property to make my plan. I threw my cell cams up, see what those show, and then I can make my plan on, all right, when's my first sit?
Mm-hmm. Another thing too, like I did with that 40 acres last year, OnX can be pretty helpful. Like I went in the 2 times I scouted it before I put any corn or cameras or anything out. I just zigzagged this whole property and I marked every scrape, every trail, the direction of the trail, not every rub, but like there was 2 different strips in there that I could clearly tell this is a rub line. I can tell they come from this way. And there is bedding on the properties that border this place. So I marked all of that, and I'm sure he remembers. I literally went home and was looking at it. I screenshot it and then, hit the markup on my iPhone so I could draw. And I literally just connected the dots of all this. And it literally made like a triangle that these deer were coming in and out of this property. And I based, based where I was going to set up my camera, feeder, and blind, based off that information. Went in there and hunted it. And that was literally almost to a T what they were doing. Now, the does, they're everywhere in there. They're here 1 minute there. I mean, he's got some persimmons on there. So 1 minute they're under the persimmons, the oaks, the next, they're everywhere in there. But once the buck started moving, which is the sign that I marked and drew the trails, they were doing that triangle. I mean, every hunt I had in the rut in there, that's the way they were moving. So, I mean, like I said, I know I don't know, that may be a known thing, but it sure helped me to just kind of look at it aerially and get an idea of how I think they may be moving through this property, and almost hit the nail on the head. And like I said, I just think that I would have been much better off, like he said, if I would have took the information my cell cam was giving me and waited. I took my wife in there early and let her kill a doe. And then, when that buck started showing up, he was showing up not long after dark, 30 minutes, an hour. And I thought maybe he's there. I'm just not getting him on the camera because, you can't cover the whole property. And then he just disappeared. So I wish I would have waited till he showed up, in daylight and then went and hunted it. So that's probably what I would do. Get in there, look for all the, sign like Connor was talking about, food, bedding, trails, old scrapes, old rubs, trails, where they're coming from, mark it all, get an idea, throw your cell cam out, and sit back and wait,
What I think is cool too is that's not just a strategy for, say, a small piece, but that's what we also do on like the big public pieces we go to. So if we're going to go into a certain ridge system,
not throw out corn.
No, not the corn part. We cannot bait on public land. But if there's a certain ridge system or a hub system that we're diving into, we'll have our waypoints, our markers that we're wanting to go generally look at. But when we're getting in there, we're looking on, is there any bedding? What's the food like? What's the old sign of the movement like? Mark this. And then we often will do that aerial look when we're done and go, okay, these rub lines, these scrape lines, this is where the white oaks are. This is where the bedding is. And a lot of times you'll see that they'll be going from the bedding to food, depending on the time of the year and what food it is. And if there's a shift from, if you may have crop in your area, when are they going from the crop to the oaks or, something like that. And so you could take even, it might be a 10,000 acre piece of public, but if you're looking at a certain system within that piece of public, you can treat that like it's a small, piece of private. And it's just like, hey, I'm diving in just to this system today. I'm going to go break this system down. And once you do that with a few different systems, you'll have these different areas on a bigger piece to hunt even as well.
Yeah, I think a big thing that you can do, especially now with hunting apps that are out there now, to do everything that you possibly can on those hunting apps, like Onyx, Spartan Forge, whatever the case may be. Get everything that you can think of, like, all right, I think this can be a good spot for food and beds and stuff like that, like you guys just mentioned. And then, like Trey did, you went out there and you marked those spots off. And then once you were done with it, you got your time out in the field. You came back in, you viewed it. You're like, all right, it matched up kind of what I was looking at. Now let's make a game plan, go back out there one more time, set all the stuff up, and then we're done. We're not going back out there until we start seeing those bucks start moving around on the trail cameras.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did want to point out, if Deucer, they're there, can you point us into the news around the world segment? I got a cool
News around the world.
So, excuse me here. I got allergies and it's really messing up my eye. I mean, it's already a bad eye because it's like whatever. Anyways, so I got an alert here. A velvet mule deer buck that was killed with a bow in Colorado on opening day could become the new record measured as a typical, with an unofficial green score of 238 and 6/8 inches. It could easily replace the current archery world record of typical mule deer in velvet, Bodie Gardner's 218 1/8 inch Utah buck.
Dang.
Deucer, if you're able to pull up a photo, that'd be great. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Dude,
Look at that.
That's a whopper.
You know what's funny is when I look at mule deer, being a whitetail hunter this time, so I'm like, man, I can't tell, like, is that like considered a big one, or like that is that like what we'd call maybe, you know, like a 3.5-year-old 8-point, you know, in comparison. Yeah, I have no question with that one. You can look at that one and be like, yeah, dang, that's a giant.
Yeah.
It's tiny. It's okay. It's nothing spectacular. No, I'm kidding. That thing's a fucking giant. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no,
So I had to pull it up, and it says it's an unofficial green score of 238 and 6/8.
whew,
That's.
it wouldn't take half that for me to draw back on a mule deer.
I don't even know if I'd be able to draw back without like just constantly like.
Yeah,
Thanks, Deucer, for showing that photo. Oh my gosh,
that's cool.
man. Well, anyways, that was a cool little break there, and it looked like, I'm just going to say this like little paragraph here. He said, Kraft said the deer vanished entirely just 2 days before the archery season opener on September 2nd. After miles of scouting, they located the buck the night of September 1st, according to the Post, with permission to hunt on 3 properties he frequented. We waited for the right moment. As the sun rose, we spotted him again. Kraft said, I crept up to within 22 yards, drew back my Matthews lift bow, and let my beast broadheads fly. He went just 30 yards before peacefully going to rest, ending an unforgettable hunt.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's pretty badass.
Bucket list right there.
I'm gonna kill one of them suckers one day.
One day. I mean, down the dream list, that's for sure.
What's weird is we actually have them in our state, and we've never even went and hunted them. Like, you know, we could literally drive, 5 hours?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6, yeah.
It's a long ways, I mean, but they are in our state. We could hunt them for free because our deer tags cover, like, it's all just a deer tag. It's whitetail or mule deer. So we could just scoot over there and hunt them. We just haven't done it.
Huh. Well, that's like we got black bear here. I've never hunted them, and they're basically in my own backyard. All right, let's start talking about Oklahoma here. We kind of been in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes left to the show here. Let me ask you first this real question. Let's start off with terrain. What's the terrain like there in Oklahoma? Because in my mind, when I think of Oklahoma, I think of obviously the movie Twisters. And I think of it just completely flat as shit, and that's why you guys get a bunch of tornadoes. But I know that's not the case. So can you break it down for me?
It depends on where you are, obviously. Like, I'll let Connor cover the, like, from him to west part, because that's where you're going to get more of that, like, flat look, rolling hill stuff. Now, where I'm from, we're basically Arkansas, like, Northeast Oklahoma. It's just like big ridges, bluffs, mountains. I mean, obviously not Colorado mountains, but big mountains, for us. And, yeah, not a lot of flat around here. I mean, farm country and big woods, that's what I grew up hunting. I'd never seen a cornfield or bean field in my life until the first time we hunted Missouri and Kansas. I mean, Connor, like I said, I'll let him cover his area, but out towards where he lives, it looks more like your Twisters movie.
Huh.
What's funny is I'm still on the severe, like, eastern side of the state. Trey is in this small sliver of northeastern Oklahoma that is like mountain range. I'm not even in what's plains Oklahoma by any means.
Right.
I would say northeastern Oklahoma, you've got your mountains. Southeastern Oklahoma, you've got big mountain systems as well. When you get to, I'm around Tulsa, so I'm on the east side still. But I'd call like central Oklahoma will often be kind of like Kansas. Central Kansas is the same, where you've kind of got the breaks. You're going to have your steep hills and stuff, but it might be a mix of steep hills, some oak ridges within those, and then you've got your plains as well. Like you've got your your just different pasture land, things like that. And then as you start getting to like Oklahoma City West and that area, that's when you get your flat land, and you still have a mix in topography a little bit, but you get more of your flat land, your crop land. There's still crops around, say, the Tulsa area and, things like that. But once you start getting western, you've got your southwestern mountains as well. And then you get to the Panhandle, and that's where you can watch your dog run away for 7 days. Like that's the flat. So we have a kind of a cool mix, but we haven't hunted western Oklahoma. I've hunted not in the Panhandle, but I have hunted what I'd call almost probably an hour from the Panhandle, a little bit, and it's a different kind of atmosphere. It's more like what I call what I'm used to with Kansas, and I really like it. I do enjoy it. It's a different style. The mountains will humble you, and the different ridge systems. Even though they're not like we said, like big mountain systems, like you go out west, we still have our mountain system, our ridge system, our hill country without the ag really. But it's kind of cool being able to hunt a little bit of all that, and it's interesting to see the tactics that can kind of work in both. It's just they look a little different.
Yeah. Oh, and two totally different deer too. Like you're talking western versus eastern Oklahoma. I mean, not that I want a ton of people knowing it, but like Oklahoma grows some really good deer all over in the, acorn ridges and out west where there's some ag, but like him and his dad have hunted, like I said, a little farther west, and his dad killed one a few years ago. It looked like a Kansas deer, big old giant. I mean, just giant. It probably weighed over 200 pounds. And like I killed a 160 on public here where I live a few years ago. He probably weighed like 130. Like they're much smaller deer. So more that direction you get more like Kansas type deer. I don't really know what the deer down south are like. I have no idea. I would assume about like around here. But yeah, kind of cool. Hey, you can get kind of a mix of both. It's like, we didn't draw Kansas this year, but if we wanted like a taste of Kansas, we could just drive a few hours,
Sounds like your state's kind of got like it's kind of like Michigan in a way. You got like multiple states in one.
Sort of.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah, you get that mixed habitat, and kind of that's the thing of like whether you're from Oklahoma or if you're a non-resident coming in, you can kind of pick like what are you wanting to go after? Are you wanting to potentially spot and stock? Or are you wanting to see a bunch of deer, but you got to kind of figure them out because it's more open, but you got to figure out their patterns? Or you want to go get into the hardwoods where it's woods, and nothing but woods. So it's kind of, you can kind of decide what exactly you want to do. And I mean, I've always been the believer, just where we hunt, at least you can find big deer anywhere. It's just how you do it's going to be a little bit different based on that choice of habitat.
Michigan, we break it down into like it's got a bunch of different versions of different states involved in one here. Like the UP, it's like basically Maine, New Hampshire, and that type of world. And the upper part of Michigan is kind of similar. And then you move down south where it's just a lot of corn, a lot of ag, a lot of fields like that. So it's like a lot of Iowa and Illinois type fields, if you want, whatever the case may be. But I think though with your state in Oklahoma, you got like Kansas type property like on the west side. You got mountainy type in like Arkansas, like you said. So you got all these, like kind of like you just said, you get the chance to do multiple different styles of hunting in your own state right there. Like you said, spot and stalk. You can go in the woods and hunt in tree stands. So it's like you guys got like a little Christmas present all wrapped in one. It's like, oh, which one do I want to go with today?
Right.
So I'm kind of jealous. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And one good thing about where we live too, being in the northeastern, section of Oklahoma, is there's a lot of good stuff not too far from us. Like, we can be to Kansas in an hour and a half. We can be to Missouri in an hour and 20 minutes. Arkansas is, for me, is 20 minutes away. Him's a little further. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of options. Now like when we go to Missouri, we tend to go further north. But yeah, I mean, we do have a lot right here, but we're close to a lot too. I think that's why we've enjoyed Kansas. A lot of there's guys travel 20 hours to come hunt Kansas, but we can go in a day. That's been beneficial for us, drawing Kansas. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff right around in here.
Deucer, let's take us into the segment of Law and Order.
Law and Order.
Let's talk about this here. When's the hunting seasons like there first? Let's start off there.
October 1st through January 15th will be your archery season. Muzzleloader will be late October. And that's in youth is the same weekend, isn't it?
It's the weekend before muzzleloader.
Weekend before muzzleloader. And then the week of Thanksgiving is when our gun season starts, and it runs 2 weeks. And then we have an antlerless gun season in December, the holiday doe season.
Let me ask this first now. When is prime rut time? If people want to come with with a bow, when would you tell them to like kind of prepare for?
It varies.
Honestly, it's not scientific. I mean, it's not like it's going to be from this date to this date. What's a general?
It varies every year a little bit. Like I said, you can get some really good pre-rut stuff, right around that like Halloween time, a week before Halloween. Depending on the weather, you get a cold front, crap can get crazy. But I would say I tend to like the second week of November to like Thanksgiving, just because it seems like that you're playing with fire that first week in November. The weather could be 80 degrees and stuff could be slow. Or it could be cold and it could be, on fire. It just depends, year to year. But I would say, I mean, you can give your opinion, but like I said, anywhere around like the 5th, 6th, 7th of November to like Thanksgiving, it can get real good. Like I said, biggest buck I've ever shot around here, I shot on November 22nd. I mean, he was still out looking for does. I tend to see bigger deer later November. You may see less cruising, as a whole, but you may see bigger deer up and moving later in November.
Yeah, I'd echo the same things. I think first week of November some years is awesome, and it might be November 1st, and it's like, dude, you better get in the woods. But I'm a big fan of late October if I can get on them, and I know what if I'm feeling good and I've got my scouting's been looking good, I'm on the right deer. I really like late October because I like when they start hitting scrapes. I like when they start doing that early cruising before they really get on does, because in the rut anything can happen and those bucks start going everywhere. Now, I would say if you're wanting rut action, second week November up into rifle is probably when I'd say if you're there for the rut and you want to try to get as many bucks as you can on their feet running around. I don't like going deering rifle, depending on, if you're hunting public or things like that, you might run into a ton of people and things can get pretty crazy. So that week right before rifle is one I'd say if you're wanting rut action. If you're wanting to gamble and hope the weather looks nice and give that late October can be pretty fun.
Yeah, like I said, you get your wild hair stuff. Like, I mean, I've had, multiple times. It's like the 18th of October and a doe comes in, and there's 7 bucks on her. And you got to be in the right spot on the right day for that. You know what I mean? But, if I was going to tell somebody, when to come, if they want to experience the rut, like Connor said, second week on to rifle is your best bet to hit the nail on the head.
PSC Mobile Hunter, he says Halloween is prime time here usually. And in retrospect, he's here from Michigan as well. So Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I've been noticing like a lot of states, it's obviously kind of similar in the same ballpark time, but it's hard to think of that. I mean, with different time zones, different planes, like you move down south, it's like you got a different. You're not getting wet the winter, obviously, like we are up here in north, so it's gonna be a little different. So I always like asking like when the rut generally is, because like I said, real quick though, do you get a lot of snow in Oklahoma? It's probably a stupid question.
No,
I mean, it might get cold, and if we do get snow, it's more like I feel
After
like
deer
lately it's
season.
been more February, March,
Yeah.
or like early March, but probably late January, February, and we usually don't even get snow, so we don't actually we get like what
Ice.
I'd call an inch of snow and 2 inches of ice, and so we'll have barely any snow, and school will get canceled and everything like that. But that's because we don't know how to drive on ice down here, so we
Right.
just panic and run off the road.
Yeah. The last few years, we've actually gotten more snow than we have in a while. And it's like usually, January, February, March. And I think was it 2 years ago? We got one like it was like 4 to 6 inches. And then like 4 days later, it snowed another 3 or 4 inches. And there were places that got like 8 to 10, 12 inches of snow. And that just blew everybody's mind. That's a ton of snow for us. I mean, we're used to legit getting like dustings to an inch. I mean, if you get an inch of snow, there's people outside building snowmen. Like it's exciting, But during deer season, it's rare for us to get a legit we'll get dustings, December, January sometimes, because we end January 15th, and I think a couple of years ago we got like a good, because I filmed in it and everything. It was when we had the lease, me, you, and your dad. We got like a 4-inch snow in December, and I was pumped. I was actually off that next day, and I hunted the whole time. And honestly, I don't think our deer know what to do, because every time I hunt the snow, and I haven't done it a lot, like I said, it doesn't snow a lot in deer season, but you get a good snow and it gets cold. It's like that first day, the deer don't move a lot. Now that following day, then they start to really get up and go, and I usually have to go back to work by that time, or I'm just working. But it don't last long. Even if you do get 3 or 4 inches of snow in that time of year, you're looking at it's going to be probably 40, 50, 60 degrees the next day or two, and it's going to be gone.
Yeah, my wife, real quick side story, she's from Tennessee, and her dad they were on their way back from Tennessee back up here to Michigan, and obviously Michigan, we get a ton of snow. They get pulled over by an officer, and they just got like a light dusting of snow, and it's the same thing in Tennessee. One little thing, everyone shuts down everything because no one knows how to drive on that shit. Mm-hmm. And he's like getting an attitude with the officer, and he was in the military, so he's very respectful of that stuff. But he's like, I'm from Michigan. I know how to drive on this shit. Don't tell me how to not drive on snow and ice. This is nothing. And the cop's just like, just shut the fuck up and go. Just drive away. Because he saw that he had a Michigan license. So I just thought that was hilarious. Like the fact that people shut down all their schools for like an inch of dusting of snow or whatever. And here in Michigan, schools aren't shutting down unless you have 20 feet of snow. So
I think the difference here is, like Connor was saying, we tend to get, like, especially, it seems like almost every time we get snow, it starts out as rain, or it'll get so cold when we get those snows. It's like you'll get a couple inches of snow, a little bit of ice, and which makes the road slicker and snot. And then it's like it'll warm up to 35 in the day, and then it drops to 10 at night, and it melts everything, and then just turns it straight ice. Like, and the roads are bad. All the back roads. I mean, they keep the main roads clean, but like where I live is all country schools. I mean, nobody can climb their hills or get down their hills, or it's all the back roads that are just slicker than crap that they don't go treat. I'm sure places like where you live, you guys get tons of snow all the time. You're on top of that crap. Here, I feel like all of a sudden we find out it's snowing and people start scrambling,
I'll say this though, it's annoying and I hate it. They do it every year. So we'll get like rain, and then that will freeze, and then we'll get a bunch of snow on top of it, and they'll plow it as far down as possible, but yet it's still ice on the bottom. Like, leave snow on top of it for traction. Don't go straight down to the bottom for fucking ice. They do it year in and year out. I'm like, stop doing it. And they think, I don't know what to say or do, but it's annoying. It's like, just, I want snow for traction. I don't want to be driving on ice.
Right.
Biggest thing. Don't get me started. I'm going to finish. Stop right there. All right. So we're getting close to the end of the show here. I got 5 rapid fire questions I want to shoot you guys' way before we let you go. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. first one here is, what is one state you want to hunt in that you haven't hunted yet?
There's lots.
We answer in the same. Oh, I got my state.
You go ahead.
Are you talking whitetail or in general?
General.
Oh, I thought we were talking whitetail.
Okay,
I'm gonna stay with it. I'm gonna
no,
say
no.
Iowa has been my bucket list state, and right now we're both at 2 preference points, so we're building those preference points up. So I'd go Iowa.
Yeah, I'd probably have to say Iowa since I have the points. But if I had some time, I would love to hunt Ohio. There are some hammers in Ohio. I know it gets a lot of pressure, but something about that place just makes me want to go hunt it.
Yeah. All right, so you can't pick your state, but what state would you move to solely for hunting?
Kansas.
Only because we know it. If you wanted to go with a state that I haven't been to, so like the reason we say Kansas is because we've had some pretty good luck there and we've just enjoyed the heck out of it. But if I had to pick a state that I wasn't going to, like hadn't already been to, I'd have to go Iowa because I'm in the Midwest and I can go to all the other states I want, where like Illinois is over the counter, Missouri's over the counter, and I'm in the state that you have to draw to get into.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I'd agree.
Yeah. What animal is on your bucket list to hunt, and with what weapon?
Go ahead.
Number 1, elk. Number 2, mule deer. Number 3, pronghorn, all with a bow.
Yeah. Yep. Elk, mule deer are like my next 2 that I want to accomplish. And I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had the opportunity to gun hunt them, I sure as heck would, but I would love to do it with my bow.
Now, if someone really rich would like to donate money, I'm all in for
Moose.
a bighorn sheep. So if you want to send a whole casino my way, I would love to do that. But I'm a teacher, so that ain't happening.
I would say my ultimate, like, if I had like a dream that obviously everybody has that dream they feel like it's probably never going to happen. I would say mine is a big moose. I would love to kill a big moose with my bow, but obviously that takes some money. So we'll see if that
Keep it realistic.
Yeah.
We'll start right here tonight. Everyone, let's create the GoFundMe page for Connor and Trey's amazing wild adventures in hunting. So let's start that up and let's tune in there and chip them some cash.
Yeah.
No, I've actually, moose is a typical one. The one animal, though, that's been kind of caught me off guard is I was talking to Derek from New Mexico. He said caribou.
Yeah.
We have a buddy that has been to Alaska a few times and has killed some caribou, and he's gone on the Dalton Highway. And talking to him, I mean, every time we talk to him about it, we're like, dude, we need to go do this. It sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
It does sound like a blast.
Yep.
PSC Mobile Hunter said, I have apples, I'm assuming applied, for Iowa, hoping that in a couple years I will get a draw.
We may be there around the same time.
Yep.
All right. Number 4. Do you have any hunting superstitions? And if so, what are they?
Do I?
Should I throw the one out this year? So this year we've had a couple and they're stupid, but
I'll tell you mine after, but go ahead. They've
been pretty consistent. So as of recent, if we're standing up and we're not seeing deer, because we'll hunt together quite a bit and try to film. If we're standing up, not seeing deer, we sit down and we'll see a deer. If we sit down for a long period and we haven't seen one, we'll stand up. That's one. And then this year, without a doubt, I'd be like, you got that peanut butter Cliff Bar ready? And he'd be like, yeah. And the minute we start opening that loud freaking wrapper of a peanut butter Cliff Bar, we'll look around like, dude, deer coming, get ready. And we'll have to like last year, I was filming him with one hanging out of my mouth while I'm filming, and
I shot a doe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally
there like holding this thing while
I shoved mine like in the pocket of my heavy coat, and his is in his mouth, and I'm shooting this doe in Kansas. It
got to the point I went to Sam's Club and bought the gigantic value pack of them because I was making sure every hunt I went on, I had a Cliff Bar.
Yeah. The whole sitting down and standing up thing, that stemmed from a hunt we had in Kansas our first year. We went early season in September. I killed a doe. We didn't really hunt a lot. So then we waited until it was the day before Halloween.
Or day before Halloween.
Yeah. We went in the day before Halloween. We're going to be there a few days. And that first morning we went into a spot we hadn't hunted yet, but we knew it was going to be good just based off an old sign that we found. We just didn't know if the biggins had showed up yet. But tore up with old rut sign. So we get in there, we get in this tree, and it's all morning, just deer all morning. I don't know how many does we seen, but we ended up seeing like 11 bucks. And it was like every time we sit down, like it'd either be on my side or his side. One of us would be like, buck, buck, buck. And we just stand back up. We'd stand up for 15, 20 minutes. And we were like, well, let's sit down and sit down. And then we're like, oh dude, there's a buck right here. So that just become a thing after that hunt. We were like, if we want to see a deer, we just got to sit down because we tend to stand a lot. So
not on saddles. If we're hunting the saddles, we can't quite do that one.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to rely on our Cliff Bar superstition.
That's hilarious. I just see like a giant cigar out your mouth. I'll get this on camera now.
I was sitting there like, please, because I'm like trying to hold it in my mouth like enough where it won't fall out, but also where I won't bite through it so it falls. I'm like, please don't let this Cliff Bar fall out of my mouth. And this deer is just like, what the heck?
Yeah. I guess technically the first time that ever happened with a granola bar was the buck in Kansas the first year that I shot in the brisket. I don't know if you remember the GoPro footage, but like I was sitting on the ground for an evening hunt and I done like a little grunt rattle sequence. I'm thrashing bushes around me and throwing leaves. And then I set it down. I wait like 10 minutes, nothing. And so I pull out a granola bar and I'm trying to eat this granola bar. I get one bite in and I look up and there's like 140-inch 8-point at like 40 yards and he's coming. And I like literally like have I'm doing everything with the granola bar in my mouth and you can see me eventually realize the granola bar is in my mouth. And I just grabbed it and shoved it in my pocket. So I guess technically we can add that to the granola bar Cliff Bar list, but yeah. Anyway, that's probably it.
All right. Last one here. What is one thing that you can think of that we can do as a hunting community that we could or should do to help improve the hunting community as a whole?
That's a tough one. Go ahead.
I know this has probably been said, and I can be bad about it as well, but I think a lot of people want to point out all the negative, whether it's you shot a buck is too small. I'm sick of the guys that are filming on YouTube. Why has everyone got a podcast? And it's like, I feel like a lot of us are often quick to belittle on little things. And you don't know everyone's situation or what they're, with whatever it may be, whether it's a buck video or whatever. There's people, I mean, I'd hate to have somebody get out of the hunting community because they felt like, well, man, everyone I talked to just kind of seemed like a jerk. And so, I mean, we all have those moments where we may say something and it may get taken wrong or whatever. But I feel like the big thing is, I'm not saying that the hunting community is like a dying community, but it's a tradition that it's definitely evolved, over the years, and it's going to continue to evolve. But whatever it evolves into, I think it needs to stay a tradition and not kind of fade out or, we're pushing people away. We don't want to invite new hunters because, there's already enough new hunters. I'm sick of, people like the THP and all that stuff that people will say they're bringing too many new people in. We only have so much public land. At the end of the day, I think the more people hunting can only be a positive if we have more people advocating for what we love to do, especially when you see public lands going away and people fighting to try to like, hey, we want to keep this public. Well, the more people in your community, the more people you're going to have fighting to keep it. So I think that's one thing I'd say is not doing things that might turn away people from staying as a part of the hunting tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think guys, maybe due to social media some too, but guys tend to, get a little down maybe about what they're seeing, what they're killing, what they have. I don't know. I said it on a podcast once, just randomly of ours, but just hunt your hunt, man. And enjoy it. Like, I feel like back in the day, before social media and all of that fun stuff, I just loved to hunt. And every deer I seen got me excited. I killed so many small deer back in the day, and like I said, you see so many big deer. Every time you open your phone now, it's just booner after booner after booner, and that's hard, I'm sure for some guys, depending on where you live, But another thing too is just be kind to people. I feel like that's one thing we strive to do is just be nice to people we meet, stuff like that, especially on public lands, because there's some guys that just aren't nice, And honestly, it's paid for us. We've met some really cool people. And if you're nice to people, sometimes that comes back, as a positive. We've gotten permission by being nice. We've gotten information, help. Like, we've had guys literally be like, hey, you guys, like, I've been really nice and helpful. Like, here's the trail cam pictures I've gotten at this place. Or, it just be nice to people. Everybody's out there trying to do the same thing you're doing. Yeah. And yeah, just we're all out there for the same reason, so enjoy it and hunt your hunt. And yeah.
No, I agree with you both. In the hunting community, we get from outside people that don't understand what hunting really is, and we get criticized by them like, oh, you guys just out there slaughtering, killing animals. What the fuck are you? You guys are killers and all this stuff. And it's like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what we do and everything that's involved about it. We actually love animals more than actually just out there killing them. So that's like a big pet peeve of mine. Just like, who the fuck do you think you are? Shut the fuck up. Excuse my language. But, and then to see other hunters bash other hunters on like, why'd you shoot that deer? And why did you go do that? And they're constantly criticizing this and that. And like Trey, you were saying, like, you don't know that person's story. You don't know their history. You don't know their background. And that person could be hunting once every month or something like that. You just don't know. So just in general, as human beings, be nice to each other, be kind to each other, and support each other. And now that we live in this social media driven world that we live in now, where it's like, oh, if you don't shoot a 140 plus inch deer, you're not a real hunter. Fuck that. Yeah. We got so like the saying was back in the day where it was like, you're not dating unless you're Facebook official type shit. Now it's like, well, I'm not posting my deer on social media if it's not that size. It's like, well, if I don't get that deer, then I'm not a real hunter. No, hunting is going out there and shooting a deer and putting your arrow. If you're solely looking at archery hunting, putting an arrow through a deer that's, let's just say, 20 yards away is fucking hard, man. I don't care. We make it look like it's easy because we've been doing it for so long. But let me tell you, it's still a challenge. You still got to get this deer that is designed and created to live on its own and to avoid predators. So you got to avoid all this other crap, and it's still complicated. And yet you still have stuff that can go wrong with your bow, a whole bunch of other crap.
And just when you think you got it down, something will come along and humble you pretty quickly.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So
been there, done that.
Yep. Yeah,
everyone just basically needs to chill the fuck out and just help each other out.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, go out there, have fun, kill what you want, and don't worry about what anybody else says. Like, I think that's the stuff that annoys me is like, you don't know why somebody's out there, and not, we're out there to hunt and we're out there for the same reason. But like I fell, like when we first started hunting together, I hadn't killed a really nice deer, killed a lot of bucks. But I mean, I got fired up when I seen a 2 or 3 year, 2-year-old buck. And you do get that, like, you kill 100-inch deer, you can almost get to where you're like, I don't really want to post this or anything, like, because you feel like everybody else out here posting big deer. But like, I hate that it's been pushed to where people feel like that. You know what I mean? Because like, did it get you fired up? Like, was your heart about to beat out of your chest? Like, then what do you work? Like, awesome, like, more power to you. Like, I'm all for that stuff. Like, I don't care what it's got on its head. I don't care if it's a doe. I kill 4 or 5 does a year because they get me fired up, and I like to eat them, but
it tastes great.
Yeah. So yeah, go out there and hunt your hunt, and yeah, don't care about what anybody else says,
ESC Mobile Hunter here stated, new hunters are getting tricked. You have to buy their product to kill a big buck. I agree with that sentence right there. And all the commercials and the social media shows that nothing but big bucks. If it's a doe, it's Brett's enema.
Yeah, I think I definitely think, I mean, what's funny is we'll joke all the time, like, no matter how many big bucks you see on social media and all that, we're like, there's some old dude somewhere with a tire shed full of them that doesn't have social media, doesn't film any of his hunts, and probably is the way better hunter than half of us, like to think we are. And he doesn't say crap to anybody. There's always somebody like, oh, dude, there's this old guy back in my hometown. And so we're like, I mean, if that guy can go his whole life doing that, not be throwing it in everybody's face or whatever, we're like, that's the way it should be. It should just be the tradition of what it was. And obviously it's going to change and all that, but banter's fun. We're not saying everything has to be kumbaya, but a little banter here and there, but don't knock anybody out of the community because of it.
Yeah. Just support people.
Amen.
Well, guys, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show. It was amazing to talk to you guys. I feel like we can go on this topic itself for a long time, but in hunting in general, we could be on here for hours, I feel like. But for anyone that wants to reach out to you guys, follow your content, and keep along with you guys, how can they reach out to you guys? How can they keep in track with you?
So we have our personals. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I know Trey is as well. So our personal, social medias, you don't hesitate to reach out. A lot of our old content, if you want to watch some of our old content, we used to run a page called Whitetail Mission. And so we've got that old content on YouTube if you want to kind of learn a little bit about who we are. And then for the future, our content, our videos will be on the Mobile Hunter. And they've got the Mobile Hunters podcast, social media. They've got the Mobile Hunters Expo. And their YouTube is where we'll be putting our videos and content with Chris and Josh, a couple great guys. If you haven't checked them out or checked out that expo, it's such an awesome event. And it's really cool to see a bunch of hunters come together in that community we've talked about and what they've been able to do with Chris, Josh, and Rick as well, Jacob. They've all done a great job with organizing all that. So we'll be teaming up with them this year, and our new content will be going through there as well.
Well, guys, I can't say thank you enough again, man. And we definitely have to stay in touch. Like I said, I had Josh on last Tuesday, and so I can't wait to see what you guys are doing with them. And like I said, thank you again, and we'll definitely have to stay in touch, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man. Really appreciate it.
See you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
Oh, man, what a great couple of guys right there. And like I said, we can go on for hours talking, and it seems like we all got the same mindset when it comes to trying to improve hunting and trying to become better outdoorsmen in general, better human beings as well. But great episode. I want to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in for tonight's show. Thank you all for the comments out there. With that being said, Deucer, let's just kind of wrap it up for tonight. Everyone put your cord in the slot machine, and Deucer, let's take us out for tonight. We'll see everyone on Thursday.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next